Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a brief history lesson. What is Route 66? The early days of America had a lot of unpaved rural roads, and the need to link up all these roads came along mainly between Chicago and LA, Chicago being the furthest inland that shipping could get from the Atlantic, and of course LA being the major trade hub with the Pacific. And while America had fairly good rail, the rail network had to span a huge area of land, and not all communities were served by the rail, which made it very difficult to get goods from place to place. So the Highway Act, made by the government in 1925, aimed to link the two destinations to make it easier to distribute goods around the country. Seems fair enough, right? So the first route that was designated 66, because Route 60 was already taken, was mainly unpaved and opened in the mid-1920s. And then, attempts to pave this road got underway, but they were followed by the Great Depression, which was subsequently followed by what's known as the Dust Bowl, a period in the 1930s when very dry weather in the south caused huge amounts of dust and failed crops and general misery for everybody in sort of the Oklahoma and Texas areas. But this just drove up demand for a road all the way to California. This is where these people wanted to end up, try and make a new life, because their agricultural ventures, some of which have been around for centuries, had just completely collapsed due to the climate in the area at the time. Finally got paved in the late 1930s, and lots of people were making their way mainly west from, not always from Chicago, from certain destinations on 66 all the way down to LA to start a new life in the sunshine or whatever. And then the Second World War came along, and it was a huge boost to troops and supplies, being able to get those across the country with great ease, especially into those sort of smaller communities which the trains had trouble accessing. And after the Second World War, President Eisenhower had been to Germany to see the ruins, but he noted how good the road network was in Germany and came back with a grand idea of improving America's roads. This was the start of the downfall of Route 66, which by then was a mainstay of transport from east to west and from west to east. And the construction of the interstate system, like the British motorways I suppose, was started with the Federal Aid Highway Act in 1956, and by 1970 it was possible to circumnavigate most of Route 66 just by taking the multi-lane interstate. It's much more convenient for a lot of people. And as the road fell out of favour, it was eventually declassified in the 1980s, stopped being a road altogether, just small pieces here and there, and it was basically forgotten until revival began in the 90s, but was heavily popularised by the Disney Pixar movie Cars, which tells the story of Route 66 in not so many words, but does tell that story. And today, mainly a tourist attraction, I suppose. Nobody would seriously use it to get across the country as quickly as possible, but nonetheless, it's a way for people to kind of see what things used to be like, what the history of their country entails. And not all of it survives. A lot of it does, but it depends. It took very different routes along the years as new sections of road opened and old sections closed because they were less well paved or narrower, or new bridges were built or new sections came into being. So some of it is no longer around. About 80% is, but it depends which section you want to traverse. Some of it is too rough for regular vehicles, and Some of it is so far off the beaten track that you just wouldn't consider going that way under normal circumstances. But in its heyday, it was 2,500 miles of road, starting in Chicago, going all the way down to LA in California, through 8 separate US states, several major cities, dozens and dozens of minor towns, and today is known colloquially as historic Route 66. Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, I made it. I'm in Chicago. How crazy is this? Just look at this room. It's mental. Look at this. I'm not worthy of such a room, but I'm here, so I'm going to enjoy it. So I've been travelling since 10 AM UK time to get to London. Took a flight. It's only 9 hours. Never done transatlantic before. First time here in America, so I'm pretty tired. It's now coming up to 9 PM local time, which would be 3 in the morning if I've been doing a normal day, but hey, I'm in Chicago, so I'm going to go out. Very, very strangely, very strange coincidence, a friend of mine happens to be here on work right now. He lives in the same town as me, but he is also in the same town as me right now, in Chicago. I almost didn't get here. I had to get a train from the airport and then a bus, and there were about 1 million different trains and buses. It's a big city. But it turned out a lady on the bus stop happened to strike up a conversation, and she was going pretty much exactly the same way that I was, and she sort of helped me find the right stop, because it's not easy. The transport system's pretty different. So I'm heading out into Chicago to find something to drink, preferably beer. The car's not arriving until tomorrow, so we're not starting the Route 66 section until tomorrow. When it arrives, we'll go on the road, but before that, I'm going to go find myself a beer. But that was an interesting night. Into a nice bar called
Sable, downtown Chicago. That was pretty cool. It's $7, $8 cocktails. Well, $7, $8 beers and $15 cocktails. It's quite a fancy place, I think. It's good to meet up with my friend from Cheltenham. We're meeting up with him tomorrow, once more time, to have some pizza. Of course, can't leave Chicago without having some deep dish pizza. We're checking out a few places now, and we'll let you know where we end up. He didn't want to be on camera, which is fair enough. Plus it was a little bit dark in there anyway, so couldn't really get any good video. Back at the hotel, I'm going to get some kip, pick up the car tomorrow morning, and probably head out to the museum in Chicago. Lots to see there. And then tomorrow evening I'll be heading out on the road, make our first stop, get going on Route 66. Very excited, very tired though. So I'll catch you tomorrow.